Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror, so foggy, but I've never seen clearer. I don't really think anyone can save me, and honestly I'm not really sure I want saving. I like to be my own worst enemy. There's no risk if you don't try at anything, so I'ma just keep buying everything. See you in the next life, hope to be a better me. I don't think that my head's on straight, gotta flip it and grip it and go and get an x-ray. What's wrong with me? I just feel weight pushing on my chest and it squeezes till I suffocate. Better change my mindset, meditate. It's pretty cool that I'm alive and have better days. I could walk, see, hear, I should celebrate. Think I could change my mind, maybe elevate. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah, all I need are some better days. Cause all I want, and I pray, I believe in the better days. I'm kinda stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do I work hard or live at my pace? You're only young once, yeah that's all great, but I also want a future where I'm okay. Living life is doing lots of cocaine. Wait no, it's living with no shame. Wait no, it's sleeping in on Sundays. I guess it's different for each of us and that's okay. Well I just wanna be happy, how to get there? Glad that you asked me. I think it's different for everyone. Some of us need work, others need fun. Some of us need purpose to overcome. But try to do what you love when it's said and done. Cause there's so many differences in each of us. Trust your gut, it can show you what you want. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah, all I need are some better days. Cause all I want, and I pray, I believe in the better days. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Are some better days. Cause all I want, and I pray, I believe in the better days.
Know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. Stay strong and fake a smile until
Hey, to do part 2.
but I've known you too long. It hurts to watch your blue
Hello, Angie and Rick. Nice to meet you.
as you fade away.
Part 2. This is my Angie and Rick. If you haven't come through before, I am on a series of Zodiac serial killers. I am now on part 2 of Leo Zodiac. I have 3 other ones. I have 2 Capricorn series that I've done, finished, and the first one of Leo that I've done already. I'm doing some of them, at least I know at least some of these, at least the first one I've got tonight on the Leos. He is very popular. He was known as the Railroad Killer. I'm sure many of you probably have heard of him, because literally all of his killings were near or by a railroad. That's how he was skipping the cities that he was committing these murders in, was hopping the train illegally at that. Hi, Tiana. So my first one is the Railroad Code, aka Angel Resendez. He's a Mexican. I cannot pronounce his name. Angel was born in Mexico and was very physically small. Yeah, right, exactly. That's exactly what I just said. He was actually very physically small. Even since the time he was little. And he was also abused as a child. He was physically abused as a child. At the age of 6, he was sent to his mother's brother to go live with, who apparently happened to rape him and sexually assault him by other local pedophiles. So he had a lot in his history of probably what in the minds of what caused him to become what he became, because nobody took care of it. Because usually that's the way it usually happens, is these kids that were young got abused, sexually abused, and by people that they're supposedly loved, and then it gets swept under the rug and nobody knows about it. So like over the years they don't know how to cope, so they go do these murders and stuff. At the age of 11, he ran away from home, spending time in living on the streets, which doesn't surprise me. He took up glue sniffing. That's weird. But I've heard so many people talk about that. Just it's weird. At the age of 16, he tried to enter Texas but he was deported. It became the first of his many entries into the United States. Okay, Tana, I hope you feel better, hon. It's never no good when you don't feel good. I understand that totally. Hey, G, much love. In 1988, he spent some time living in St. Louis, where he worked for a temp agency. In adulthood, he spent a total of 11 years in America's prisons for each crime, such as assault, auto theft, firearm possession, and burglary. Literally, I never say that word right. After finishing each sentence, he would be deported back to Mexico, only to return every time. At the time of his arrest, he was married to a woman named Julieta, with whom he had a daughter with. His first known murder occurred in 1986 when he killed a homeless woman and her boyfriend. He shot her 4 times with a .38 caliber, dumping her body in an abandoned farmhouse. Rendez stated that he met the woman at a homeless shelter. They took a motorcycle trip together, bringing a gun along to fire for target practice. He then said that he shot and killed the woman for disrespecting him. Remains of Jane Doe found March 23rd, 1986. Yeah, her remains were found, but they didn't know who it was. Supposedly, the boyfriend of the previous victim, Rendez said he shot and killed him, then dumped his body in a creek somewhere between San Antonio and Uvalde. Rendez Angel said that he killed the man because the man was involved in black magic. This man's body has never been found, and nothing is known about him except what Angel told what he told the cops. Angel confessed to these murders in September 2001 in hopes that doing so he would speed up his execution. July 19th, 1991, he committed his first known murder in the U.S. soil, killing 33-year-old Michael White in Kentucky by beating him to death with a brick. His body was found in the front yard of an abandoned downtown house. Angel also confessed to this murder in September 2001 during the confession. He drew a map of the crime scene and claimed that he killed White because he was homosexual. On March 23rd, 1997, in Orocla, Florida, the body of Jesse Howe, 19, was found by the railroad tracks. He had been beaten to death with an air hose coupling, whereas his fiancee, Wendy, 16, had been raped and strangled to death and was buried in the shallow grave some 30 miles away in We Hope, Florida. Angel confessed to the double homicide. Holly Dunn testified that on August 27, 1997, Angel approached her and Christopher near some railroad tracks in Lexington, Kentucky. Angel robbed Dunn and Angel robbed Holly and her fiance, robbed them, and then he bound them together, hands and feet, and gagged him. Angel picked up a large object and beat her fiance in the head with it, crushing his skull. After murdering him, Angel sexually assaulted Holly. He then hit her in the head with a large object and left the scene. Dunn survived, but suffered multiple facial fractures and the trauma of the sexual assault. Yeah, you're all right, Nate. Hey. In October of 1998, Angel broke into the home of 87-year-old Leafy Mason in Hughes Springs, Texas. Mason was beaten to death with an antique fire iron after entering her house through a window. On December 17th, 1998, Dr. Claudia Benton, 39, was stabbed with a kitchen knife, hit 19 times with a 2-foot-tall bronze statue, and raped her in her home. At his 2000 trial for Benton's murder, Angel pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. He claimed he was half human and half angel and was waging a war against evil. Police found her Jeep Cherokee in San Antonio and found Angel's fingerprints on the steering column. Norman J. Cernick, 46, and Karen Cernick, 47, were bludgeoned to death on May 2nd, 1999 by a sledgehammer in their sleep. He also sexually assaulted Karen. The murders occurred in a parsonage, I know I'm saying that wrong, of the United Church of Christ in Wilmer, Texas, where Norman was the pastor. The building was located adjacent to a railroad. The Cernicans' red Mazda was also found in San Antonio 3 weeks later, and fingerprints linked their case with the Claudia Benton case. Naomi, a 26-year-old school teacher in Houston, was bludgeoned to death in her parent apartment near some railroad tracks on June 4, 1999. 7 days later, her white Honda Civic was discovered by state troopers on the International Bridge in Del Rio, Texas. Angel's next known victim was Josephine Convict, 73-year-old. On June 4, 1999, Josephine was killed by the blow of a pointed garden tool on the head while she lay sleeping in her home. Her farmhouse was not far from Wilmer. Angel attempted to steal her car but was unable to take it since he could not find the car keys. On June 15, 1999, Angel showed up from Texas in Goria, Illinois. Angel shot George Morber Sr., 80, in the head with a shotgun, then clubbed Carol Frederick, 52, to death. Their house was located only 100 yards from a railroad line. Later, a witness saw a man matching Angel's description driving Carol's red pickup truck 60 miles south of the murder scene in Cairo, Illinois. Over the course of the following 8 years, he continued traveling by train in the U.S., during which he killed at least a dozen people. When the crimes were connected forensically and by VCAP, a manhunt started. He was nicknamed the Railroad Killer because all the killings occurred near train tracks. In June of 1999, after being identified as the killer, he was placed at the top 10 of the FBI's most wanted list. And as a reward of $50,000, which just days later was raised to $125,000. The same month, a Texas Ranger, Drew Carter, contacted Manuel, Angel's sister, who lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and to whom he was close. He promised her that Angel would be granted personal safety in jail, regular visitation rights for his family, and psychological evaluation. At the time, he had been tracked down to Mexico. After the promised deal was put into writing, the sister convinced him to turn himself into the U.S. authorities. On July 13th, Angel met with Drew Carter and surrendered himself. He was tried for first-degree murder with damning evidence to back the charges up, found guilty, and sentenced to death. On June 27, 2006, he was executed by lethal injection in Huntsville, Texas, at the age of 45. His last words were, "I want to ask if it is in your heart to forgive me. You don't have to. I know I allowed the devil to ruin my life. I just ask you to forgive me and ask the Lord to forgive me for allowing the devil to deceive me. I thank God for having patience in me. I don't deserve to cause you pain. You do not deserve this. I deserve what I'm getting." Yeah, Nate, absolutely. I remember that too. They were talking about that. They think that the axe murder house really was. That's how the guy got away. Was getting that they got away with it. It wasn't who they thought it was. It was a guy jumping the tracks. This next one is being a mother is just, I'm going, what the fuck? Next woman is her name is Marie Knoll. She was born August 23rd, 1928. Hello, deadheads. You guys can share links so y'all get to know, because I know there's a couple of new people in here too. If you need to actually share your links and whatnot, or other people can help share links. This Marie Knoll was born in Kingston, Philadelphia. Maria was one of several children born to her parents' troubled marriage. She had scarlet fever when she was 5, which led her credited as a cause of learning difficulties. She dropped out of school as a young teenager to work and help care for her niece, born to one of her older sisters when Maria was 12, and raised Maria's sister. She ended up getting married to Arthur Knoll. They met in a private club in the West Kingston neighborhood in Philadelphia. Okay, it was Philadelphia. On June 1st, 1948, after a brief courtship, the couple eloped. The couple proceeded to have 10 children, all of whom died between the ages of 5 days and 14 months. The husband, each child that I'm about to name, had died while the father was at work. So she had committed these murders while her husband was at work. But for so many years, they thought that all these children ended up having SIDS. That was, they didn't look into it. her first child, Richard, was only less than a month old. Yeah, he was exactly a month old when she killed him, because he was born March 7th, 1949, and he died April 7th, 1949. So he was a month old when she killed him. The suffocation, she was literally suffocating them, like putting a pillow over their face or whatever, so the babies couldn't breathe. Second child was Elizabeth. She was born September 8th, 1950, and she was one that lived to be the 14 months, because she lived until the next year. She didn't live, she lived enough to be 14 months, but she didn't give 58, September, October, November. Okay, she was 5 months old. That baby was 5 months old. And then her third child was Jacqueline. She lived to be a month old. Well, not even a month old, literally. She was like only maybe 2 weeks old. That baby was. Arthur Noel was, and there he was also born the same day as she was, but like 3 years later, he had another baby. Number 4 was born on the same day, April 23rd, 1955. And then he literally died days later. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And nobody, and Josh, and like I said, and nobody caught it. So like they assumed, because of the year, they assumed it was SIDS and didn't do nothing about it. The fifth child was Constance. She was born February 24th, and she lived almost to be a month. She was like literally 4 days from being a month old. Their sixth child, Loretta, she was actually stillborn, because the child's umbilical cord was in a knot really bad. And then they had Mary Lee, and she was born in 62, and okay, this one actually, Mary's the one that actually lived to be the 14 months. Yeah, well, but it could be deadheads. So she could have liked the attention. But you would think that people would have been catching on for this many kids. I mean, like literally 1, 2. All 5 first kids, their 6th kid died naturally. And then had another one. And then their Teresa, she didn't have a chance to kill her because she died in the hospital because she had congenital hemorrhage, congenital bleeding disorders. So she already did. And then after she died, and then she ended up having, a year later, ended up having Kathleen. And Kathleen only lived to be 3 months. Hi, Max. Welcome to you all that's all coming here. I'm not trying to ignore you. I'm trying to do this thing. And then their last child they had was Arthur. And he was in 1967. And then during the cesarean birth of her last child, suffered a uterine rupture and underwent hysterectomy. So yeah, after the last child, she couldn't have no more. So by the miracle of God, she couldn't have no more. Whose children were once believed to be victims of sudden infant death syndrome, pleaded guilty to 8 counts of second-degree murder in a case that spanned two decades, from 1949 to 1968. She did not spend any time in jail for the crime. Prosecutors agreed to give no 20 years of probation, the first 5 of which will be spent in home confinement and psychiatric analyst. No must undergo mental health treatment sessions with a therapist to determine the cause of her repeated infanticide, is what they're calling it, infanticide. Researchers hope to learn from the study why new mothers sometimes kill their newborns. So apparently she ended up being like one of the first postpartum before they realized that was a big issue. Um, it has been, because there is, I'm pretty sure she's still there. There's a woman in Texas that the state is still paying for, that's under psychiatric issues, but she's in a psychiatric. The difference between her, though, is she was asking for help. The woman, I can't remember what her name is, but she ended up killing all 7 of her kids. But she had asked over and over and over again, I need help. I can't do this by myself. Her depression was getting to her, and she knew it. She kept being left alone with all 7, with a newborn baby and all these children under the age of 5. It was too much for her. And then when she was asking for help, she didn't get help. And so one day she ended up literally taking each child and taking her to the bathtub and drowning them. They didn't actually at the end. I think they just occurred, and then I think somebody got into it. It doesn't say, but I think I think her husband ended up like, why are my children just dying? What's wrong? So I think it ended up doing it, but I think they started to realize that that wasn't the case. Well, okay, Matt, love you too. Yeah, it is insane. Like, why did they allow it this long? And then they all of a sudden, okay, wait, we need to study women like that. Okay. Well, and if you think about it, back in the day, SIDS was a big thing because they thought it was against, like, to this day, now they're going back and they're thinking like some of these kids probably didn't die of just what they think of as SIDS. It's just the way that they were sleeping in their beds or this or that, causing it. I know for personal, because nowadays, I will tell you, I did not know this until my 4-month-old grandson passed away, that if they cannot figure out a reason why this child dies or why the child died, they will use SIDS as the reason. They took 3-4 months to decide this for my grandson, so I knew that wasn't the reason, which I know why he passed away, but they use SIDS as to put on the death certificate if they can't figure out why the child died. Well, you're right, Nate. I think a lot of people assume that too. Like, it is scary, some of these vaccines that they do have for kids can cause different stuff. Aw, I'm sorry to hear that, Roger. Yeah, it is. It's this world. You never know what your loved ones, your best friends. You don't ever want to be on bad terms. Go to bed angry, as I say. I make that a habit. I'm never going to be mad at, especially my husband. I would never go to bed being mad, because it's an awful feeling. But prayers go to you, Roger. That is something else. This next guy is not a good guy. His name is David Al Gore. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of this one too. He was a Florida man, and he was a southern typical redneck, weighing 275 pounds. He also studied women for whatever reason. He lost one of his jobs at a gas station. He lost his first job as a gas station attendant because he thought he was going to drill a hole in the woman's bathroom so he could see what he was watching. Please hit that like button, please. This guy, what are you talking about, Josh? Oh, no problem. Juice is a really good friend, and it breaks my heart that Dex is hurting right now. You guys, if you guys don't know, Can You Dig It? Juice's dog Dex got into a fight today and is fighting for his life, literally, and he needs help paying for it because these vets want like $2,000 down to do anything. But yes, he was he's doing this because he's got a violent sexual pleasure. He served as an auxiliary sheriff's deputy, which made his hobby much easier to pull off. In February of 1981, David found 17-year-old Ying Hai disembarking from a school bus. Drinking her into the car with a flash of his badge, driving her home, Gore arrested her mother and handcuffed his captives together. He raped both victims. Mrs. Ling was tied up in such a fashion that she choked herself to death while struggling against her bonds. 5 months later, on July 15th, he found 35-year-old Judith Daly. Gore disabled her car, then played Good Samaritan, often offering a lift to the nearest telephone. Once aside his pickup, Gore pulled out a pistol and cuffed his victim. 2 years later, Gore would tell about Judith Date's fate, describing how he fed her to the alligators in a swamp 10 miles west of Interstate Highway 95. A week later, Gore fell under suspicion when a local man reported that a deputy had stopped his teenage daughter on a rural highway, attempting to hold her for questioning. Stripped of his badge, David was arrested days later when officers found him crouched in the back seat of a woman's car outside of Vero Beach Clinic, armed with a pistol, handcuffs, and a police radio scanner. Oh yeah, I'm with you, Nate. There, I am. Because it is so much of a lot of these serial killers. It is a big thing, and rape seems to be a lot of when it's serial killers. Rape is tends to be the big thing, even though it's not, or whatever. Because even with males or females, get raped, like that's what they do, and then they kill the thing. That was his last name. It only took 30 minutes before the jury sentenced him to 5 years in prison. 5 years in prison. He turned down psychiatric treatment recommended by the court, and then he was paroled of 1983. And of course, he didn't stop. Then he went on doing it again. So only 2 months later, he started abducting Orlando prostitutes at gunpoint. She slipped away and left them empty-handed. The next day, he picked up 2 14-year-old hitchhikers, Angelique and Barbara Barr. Raping both of them, Gore shot the girls to death. The one girl's body was dismembered and buried in a shallow grave, while the other was dumped in a nearby canal. On July 26, 1983, Vero Beach, authorities received an emergency report of a nude man firing shots at a naked girl on a residential street. Surrounding the suspect house, owned by relatives of Gore, officers found a car in the driveway with fresh blood dripping from its trunk. Inside was the body of 17-year-old Lynn Elliott, lay dead with a bullet in her skull. Outnumbered by the police, Gore surrendered, directing officers to the attic where naked 14-year-old Reagan was tied to the rafters. So he did have one victim. She did get with her, the 14-year-old, the one who got away, Reagan. He multiple times raped her. Like, he was keeping her at a side because he liked it. It just sicko. That's the only reason why he didn't kill her. David Allen Gore, one of the most vicious serial killers in Florida history, was executed Thursday after spending 28 years on death row. Yeah, literally. He spent 28 years on death row before they killed him. Yep. So as of 6:19 p.m. on April 12th, 2012, he was considered dead by a lethal ejection. Roger, thank you. That's funny. The next guy is Michael Bruce Ross. He was born in Putnam, Connecticut on July 26, 1959. He was the oldest of 4 children, having 2 younger sisters and a younger brother. And they lived on a chicken farm in Brooklyn, Connecticut, where Bruce ended up learning to strangle the malformed chickens. Hey, running with scissors. He learned to strangle the chickens by hand. So he was learning to strangle chickens, which just, I think, ended up giving him the strength of what he thought, and that's what he did. It just, wow. Oh, right. Gracias. It is too. And then how long they sit on death row. Like he said, that was 28 years that guy sat on death row before they finally killed him, because of there's so many. If you go through all the paperwork with like him, he tried to file so many times of trying to get off of, but like, he was convicted of all those murders, so like he wasn't getting off death row. Hi, Tanya. Yeah, right. But not in a good way. So yeah, he was literally strangling him by his hands. Um, he lived in a dysfunctional house. Their mother was institutionalized and was not right. She beat all of her children, but Ross got the worst end of it because he was the oldest. Even family members suggested that he was also molested by a teenage uncle who committed suicide when he was 6. He was good. He graduated from both high school and college. In 81, he became an insurance salesman, exhibited antisocial behavior from a young age. He began stalking women in his sophomore year of college, and in his senior year, he committed his first rape, followed by his first murder soon after that. Right. On Thanksgiving Day, 1983, he got a 19-year-old named Robin on the grounds of State Hospital in Norwich. He forcibly pulled Robin into a wooded area and ordered her to remove her clothing. He then sexually assaulted her, and after ordering her to turn over on her stomach, he, of course, strangled her. Before leaving, he covered her body with leaves. On June 13th, 1984, Ross got a 17-year-old named Wendy as she was walking along Route 29 in Lisbon. After a short conversation, he pulled Wendy B over a stone wall, forcing her to go with him into a wooded area that led to an open field. There he sexually assaulted her, forced her to turn over on her stomach, and again strangled her too. Oh my God. On Easter Sunday, 1984, Ross picked up 14-year-old April and 14-year-old Leslie, who were hitchhiking on Route 138. Once the girls had entered his car, he drove them over their protest past the intended destination. When April tried to force the defendant to stop the car by threatening him with a knife, he disarmed her and continued into Rhode Island. At Beach Pond, he parked his car and bound both girls hand and foot. He then untied April's feet and forced her to walk a short distance from his car, where he assaulted her sexually, turned her over on her stomach, and strangled her. Returning to the car, the defendant killed Leslie without sexually assaulting her. He then placed the bodies of both girls in his car and drove back to Preston, Connecticut, where he deposited their bodies in a cultivar. Ross, he confessed to 4 women and 4 others during the same time period. At his trial, the defendant did not deny having committed the kidnappings, rapes, and murders, and asserted he was insanity. 1987, Ross was convicted for the murders of 4 of the 8 women he confessed to killing. It took the jury 86 minutes of deliberation to convict him and only 4 hours to decide on his punishment. He was the first person executed in Connecticut since May 17, 1960. Connecticut prison officials put serial killer Michael Ross to death by lethal injection on Friday in their first execution in liberal-minded New England in 45 years. State officials said that shortly after 2 a.m., Ross was administered a chemical cocktail at the Osborne Correctional Institute in Somers, Connecticut. The drugs sedated him and paralyzed his muscles and stopped his heart. So May 13th, 2005, they killed him. A new guy. So Lemuel Werner Smith. A big black guy. LaMelle was born in Amsterdam, New York, in a very religious African American household. During later insanity claims, Smith stated that his first attempted murder occurred when he was just 12 years old, when he nearly smothered a 9-year-old girl to death. Oh yeah, that's something to brag about. On January 21st, 1958, Dorothy was robbed and beaten to death near Smith's neighborhood in Amsterdam. Evidence pointed towards the 16-year-old, but the case fell apart when the district attorney was too hasty in trying to extract a confession, and Smith was not arrested. During the following summer, while under continuing pressure from Amsterdam police, Smith was relocated to Baltimore, Maryland, where he soon took a 25-year-old woman prisoner and beat her nearly to death. Yeah, right. I think, but a lot of the states have quit doing that. Like literally, Texas is the only state that still does executions of any sort. I think Timothy McVeigh was one of the last of Indiana's within lethal injection thing. Like I'll never forget that. I remember watching that really early that morning when Timothy McVeigh, and if you don't know who that is, that's the Oklahoma bombing guy. This time, a witness interpreted the crime, and Smith left a living victim. He was quickly arrested, and on 4/12 of 1959, I know that 1969. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison for assault. Yeah, I hear you. There's a lot of things like a lot of the unlawful, is they call it now, is unlawful punishment. So they don't do that much anymore. Like I said, Texas is the only one that still it does the electric chair. Because like you said, like you think all these people that are sitting in death row, they're just literally, they're living their life out in prison. That's all they're doing. They're living after they even killing all these people, but yet they're living. And speaking of, LaMelle is still living. He's 81 as of this past July. He turned 81. He's still in prison. And I will tell, because I'll get to it, but like this guy is well known. There's been different shows done with this guy. I've even, if I remember correctly, a show was done with this guy. This guy is in solitary 23 hours out of the 24 hours a day. He still is in confinement. He is not allowed to be around any inmates. He barely has any contact with any of them because of what I'm about to tell you about with what he did. Yeah, right. After nearly 10 years in custody, Smith was paroled in 1968 and moved back to Capital District. On May 20th, 1969, he kidnapped and sexually assaulted a woman who managed to escape. Later that same day, he kidnapped and raped the 46-year-old of his mother's. When the woman convinced Smith to let her go, he was arrested again and eventually was in a New York prison on a 4 to 15-year sentence. Smith spent 17 years of the 18-year prison in a law passed by the New York legislature, made him a free man on October 5th, 1976. So on November 24th, 1976, the day before Thanksgiving, Robert, 48, and his secretary, Margaret, 59, were found brutally murdered in the back of his religious store in Albany. This is where he ends up screwing it thing, because if you think about it, I don't think some people just don't think about it. But human feces were found on Evans nearby, which later provided valuable. Smith was free and employed nearby. Hair and blood evidence made him a suspect. On December 23rd, 1976, while Albany police were investigating the double murder, Joan, 24, was raped and murdered and mutilated in her car at the Colonial Center Mall. The pattern of brutality and more hair evidence made Smith the prior suspect in the murder as well, but he remained free pending investigation. See, these investigations was slow, so he just kept killing and kept killing. Barely 2 weeks later, on January 10th, 1977, a large black man tried to lure a 22-year-old woman out of a gift shop in Albany. When she retested, he took her 60-year-old grandmother hostage and threatened to kill her. When help arrived, he threw the woman down, knocking her unconscious and deliberately stepping on her hand, breaking it. Only years later would the grandmother see a picture of Smith in a newspaper and identify him as her attacker. With the 3 murder investigations stalled, on July 22nd, 1977, Marlene Wilson, 30, was found strangled and mutilated near train tracks to downtown Schenectady? I have no idea where that town is. The horrendous post-mortem mutation was worse than some veteran investigators had ever seen in their region. Smith was known to visit the area, and witnesses recall Wilson being accosted by a large black man. Police made Smith the prime suspect in her murder. In 1977, Marina, 18, who worked in the same area as Morrell, was kidnapped and raped by Smith. When he forced her to drive towards Albany afterwards, police found the car and arrested Smith without incident. A short time after Smith's last days as a free man, an investigator looking at photographs at Marlene Wilson noticed that a mark on her nose might be a bite mark. She was exhumed, and the bite mark was positively matched to an imprint of Smith's bite pattern. Around the same time, in late October 1977, Smith was transported to Bleckner Stadium to Albany. He and 4 other men were randomly placed behind 5 screens at one end of the stadium. At the other end of the stadium, a police dog was giving the scent of the feces-stained clothing from the Hinderman store murders 11 months prior. The dog crossed the entire stadium directly to Smith. Out of sight of the dog, the 5 men were randomly rearranged, and the experiment was repeated in the same result. It was successful 3 times. On March 5th, 1978, with the pressure from the dog experiment and the bite mark match, Smith confessed to 5 murders, including the murder of Dorothy nearly 20 years earlier, along right. Well, and if you did Ryan, this guy, it doesn't say what this guy's problem was. This one didn't say, but like he was young when he tried to kill a 9-year-old, so it just like it makes you wonder some people's brains, how they're wired and what makes them do stuff like that. Smith revealed disturbing secrets about lifelong mental problems, including a claim that he suffered from multiple personality disorder. He attested to being controlled by the spirit of his deceased brother, John Jr., who had died from. I have no idea what that is. Luna! Scratching on the door. But Smith was only an infant when his brother died. One counselor described that other personalities besides John Jr. might exist inside Smith. So he might have had multiple personality disorder, just nobody knew nothing. They also determined that he had suffered multiple head injuries as a child and teenager, that he had suffered further mental abuse as a result of overzealous religion convictions, especially from his father. Originally, Smith's lawyers and doctors feared he might not be able to not be fit to stand trial. When it was determined to go ahead with the initial rape and kidnapping trials, 2 doctors testified to his delusions, but stopped short of saying he was criminally insane. Smith was found guilty of rape in Saratoga County on March 9, 1978, was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. On July 21st, 1978, a 4-day bench trial in Cicada, ended the Smith found guilty of kidnapping. He was sentenced to another 25 to life. Soon after, Smith unsuccessfully attempted suicide. In Albany, Smith was indicted for the Hendron store double murder. He was found guilty on February 2nd, 1979, and sentenced to another 50 years to life. When the bite mark evidence was present in the Marlene Wilson murder case, Smith was indicated for her murder. It was also indicated for the murder of Joan after confessing. Since there was already no chance of him ever leaving prison, the indictments were dismissed. In 1981, Lamel was in a maximum security Green Haven Correctional Facility. On May 15, 1981, Green Haven, Connecticut officer Donna Payton was on duty when she received a phone call and that she needed to help a co-worker. She needed to take care of a problem. When she missed roll call, hundreds of correctional officers combed the entire prison rounds throughout the night and into the following morning. Trash dumpsters were emptied into a truck, which police escorted to a dump site 20 miles away. When the garbage was spread out, officials finally found Payton's mutilated body. It was the first time in the United States that a female correctional officer had ever been killed inside of a prison. More than 5,000 officers attended Payton's funeral, and New York Governor Hugh Gary officially vowed a swift response. The same examiner that observed bite marks on Marley was coincidentally called to examine bite marks on Payton's body. He was quickly recognized the bite marks, and Smith was charged on Payton's murder. On June 1st, 1981, the charge carried a mandatory death sentence. The high-profile nature of Donna Payton's murder brought the high-profile lawyers William Kunster and C. Vernon Mason. The team alleged everything from promiscuity, I do not know what that word is, by Payton to guards dealing drugs inside and outside the prison. They were unable to evade the bite mark evidence. However, even their own expert witness agreed that the bite marks on Payton matched those on Marley. The capital murder trial finally began on January 20th, 1983. More than 18 months after Smith's arrest, the defense impinging testimony of inmates and other correctional officers proposed conspiracy theories, but with no answer to the bite mark evidence. Smith was found guilty on April 21st, 1983. Considered the only deterrent for prisoners already serving life sentence, and New York law at the time mandated that Smith automatically be sentenced to death. He was sentenced on June 10th, 1983. In July of the same year, an appeal for Smith called that lawyers constitutionally in question that successful commuting his death sentence to another term of life. As punishment for the Payton murder and due to the threat he posed even while in prison, Lamell Smith spent the next 20 years of his life in near isolation. So he literally, he's also the only one to be known to spend 20 years in isolation. Because he was that much of a threat to society and obviously police officers, because he had killed that female that correctional officer, and nobody found her until and they couldn't find her. Like, he literally mutilated her body and threw it in the trash, and it got thrown out without nobody knowing. So obviously he's a threat even in prison. So they had to put him in near isolation for 20 years. I mean, that was his first. And it says, Smith is considered one of the most dangerous living inmates in New York prison system, and he is still housed in a 23-hour-a-day isolation from other people. He's not allowed to be around other people because of what he did. Nate, though, majority of them do. If you was listening to what I said, he actually tried to commit suicide but failed miserably. But a lot of them do commit suicide instead of being there. Like, we all know that the one doctor who literally committed suicide like 2-3 years before his whatever ran out, because he knew if he didn't die, his wife wouldn't be set for life. So he committed suicide. Well, right. It wouldn't matter anyway. Like I said, he's in 24-hour, or he's in a 23-hour isolation thing. He is still, and he's 81. Yeah, he's 81 now, and he's still in prison in this 23-hour thing. He's allowed to go outside for an hour, and they have, I'm pretty sure it is because he's pretty tall, but they literally shackle him up like they do like when he's going to courthouse. So his hands, his feet, everything are shackled up before they take him anywhere. So even to go outside for that hour that he gets that hour outside, they shackle him, his feet, his hands, so he can't do nothing. And then they have to back him up and undo his things this way and that, because most people get their hands done in front. I think his are done in the back. They do it all. So that way he has to turn around to them and be undone and everything. Hey, AAP. Hey, Nightmare. Welcome back, Josh. So yeah, I have to look. I think it up, but I do believe there is. It's one of the kind of shows I do watch. But Lamar Smith really is one of those. You think somebody's bad? I mean, obviously, it just makes you think, how and did he in prison get away with killing somebody and mutilating her body at that? That's funny, Nate. This is stuff but it's learning the thing. This stuff has had already happened. Most of these murders are people are already dead anyway, but obviously he isn't. He's still in prison and he will never get out. He will die in prison. Like I said, he had the 25-year prison for one, and then the 50, and then the death penalty for killing the cop that he killed in prison while he was in prison. So it is, but you're right. Some of these things is like some of these people sit on death row for a really long time, and it's dumb. It's like, why are you going to let them sit there? And of course, I got one of like very few of, because there's sometimes here's other countries, and this guy is from China, and his name is Yang. He was born in 1968. He's always had a life of crime, and it was one of those, apparently they think they're literally blaming that his girlfriend broke up with him, so he decided to go out and kill people. There was literally like it was 22 attacks, but he was acquitted of killing 67 people and convicted of committing 23 rapes as of February 1st, 2004. The thing was, this guy learned to, he never wore the same shoes, different sizes. He purposely knew what he was doing, and then he'd burn the stuff when he was done. They got him on circumstance. They just happened to find him and got him, and then when they did get him, he was tactless about his killings, bluntly admitting to the murder of at least 67 people, as well as 23 women that he raped between 2000 and 2003 in four different Chinese provinces of China. In an interview show, China After His Child, Yang said, "When I killed people, I had a desire to kill more. This inspired me to kill more. I didn't care whether they deserved to live or not. It was none of my concern." Yeah, you know something's not mentally right with them when they do that shit. And it said apparently it's all due because his girlfriend broke up with him, so he got a vengeful attitude and started going after the community for it. Yeah, so he was 35 in a 3-year period. The attacks were carried out. He'd kill with axes, shovels. Often the victims were sleeping, so he did it to them while they were sleeping. And also when they did it, the DNA testing, he was later to the length of all. If convicted, he would rank among the worst serial killers. In all, there are believed to have been 22 attacks and 65 people were killed, which only 5 people managed to survive out of those. But yeah, he ended up being the worst because of how many people he literally got accused of killing, because he really did do all that. In at least 2 occasions, he allegedly have killed an entire family. One of his most brutal attacks was August year when a family of 5 was murdered. So yeah, he wasn't out just whatever. He was just killing just to kill. Right. Well, let's just go take it out on society. My girlfriend breaks up with me, so I'm gonna go take it out on society because it's society's fault. What the hell? I guess I guess what you say you'd use that as an excuse why he did it. I mean, the next one is another woman. Right, right. Hey, baby. Um, it's the good thing what they said. This couple ended up. She killed with her husband was. He was the one who did the scamming and stuff, but because he's already died before all this came about, she ended up being the one that gets with this murder. But they decided apparently they're the oldest couple that was ever put on death row. Um, they decided after for their retirement they weren't going to go kill people apparently. Um, they were found that people found they had killed a guy named Paul who was 21, John who was 27, Jimmy Dale 27, a guy named Wayne Warren, they don't know his age, and Dennis Murphy 27. Um, Apparently these guys were in scandal with her husband, writing bad checks and whatnot. So it just, and they were all shot in the head with a 22. Hey, Miss Renee. But yeah, it's just some of these people are just crazy. And this last one, I've got some like major detail because he like, as we've talked about before, killers tend to go after um, hookers, whores, because they're on the streets and 9 times out of 10, they don't have family looking for them. So it is an easy target. Right? That too. But yeah, this guy from the get-go, his name is William Suff, and he was born August 20th, 1950. He's 72. He's still alive. He's still in prison. He has from right off the bat in 1974, he was convicted of beating his own 2-month-old baby daughter to death. That was his first murder. Was killing his own kid, 2 months old. Though he was sentenced to 70 years, he only served 10 years before they released him on parole in 84. In 86, a local man was the street scavenging aluminum cans and found a woman laying in her back, her blouse and shorts ripped to shreds. She was covered in blood, and it looked as though her genital area had been mutilated. And okay, just so everybody knows, if you don't like details of stuff, this one really does because this guy was sick when it come to women. He mutilated their woman parts, like not in a good way at all. Like he would rape them and then destroy their genitals. The man quickly dropped his bags and ran to the assistance. The young woman was later identified as 23-year-old Michelle, a former resident of Corpus Christi, Texas. An autopsy revealed she suffered severe trauma to the anal and vagina areas, and multiple stab wounds were discovered on her face, chest, and buttocks. Ligature marks on her neck suggested that she had also been strangled as the gruesome mutilation took place. Yes, definitely keep Tana in your thoughts. She isn't feeling well. Hey, Sam. Thanks for coming in. Less than 2 weeks later, on December 11th, investigators were called to the scene of another apparent homicide. The victim, later identified as 25-year-old Charlotte, a trans from Anna, Illinois, who were discovered near Highway 74 in Romuland. According to the 15 most horrific murder cases ever to shock America by Bill Kelly, the scene was approximately 25 miles away from Michelle's murder site, and it was not immediately apparent whether the two deaths were related. In addition, Charlotte's body was so badly decomposed the coroner was unable to determine the cause of death. In January 1987, the naked and mutilated body of 37-year-old Linda was found along a dirt road in Lake Elsinore. The victim had been dead for at least 3 days. High levels of alcohol and cocaine were found in her blood. Investigators later discovered that Linda, a part-time fast food worker, had a rap sheet for drugs and prostitution. Investigators now had 3 similar homicides, and some were beginning to wonder if they had a serial killer on their hands. All doubts were put to rest on May 2nd, 1987, when 27-year-old Martha was discovered in a ravine not far from Linda's murder site. The victim, originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, was discovered fully naked and in a spread eagle position. As with Linda, she had a rap sheet for prostitution, and high levels of drugs were also on her body. The county coroner later determined she had been dead for approximately 3 weeks and died from a lethal dose of antihistamines as she was being strangled. Well, I hope you feel better, Renee. Right? Yeah, because if you actually do the statistics of that, you probably have already met somebody that has been, you know what I mean? Like we like lately it's been like we have shootings and a bunch of them, but like it's random. It's not it doesn't have MOs, if that makes any sense. Like they're not serial killers like these other people. Like the people that are doing killings now are just randomly, I'm killing people, but like there's no MO for real, like a true serial killer has, because a serial killer has the same MO as you see. This guy William has. It's a prostitute, and they are drugs and alcohol, and so he's same thing. Hey, Cleveland. And then for a while, the he decided apparently that they realized they were dumping grounds. He either stopped killing or found a different dumping ground, which remains just undiscovered till this day. Regardless, by 1989, 2 years since his last no murder, the killer struck again. On January 27th, 1989, the body of 37-year-old Linda May, a known prostitute, was discovered on the beach of Lake Elsinore. The victim's head was buried in the sand, and an autopsy later revealed large quantities of alcohol in her blood. Sand was also in the victim's throat, and the cause of death was acute asphyxiation. So she died. Him pushing her face into the sand was what killed her. That's cool, AAP. I kind of figured I get that. I know you're multitasking. You got a lot to do. Nearly 6 months later, on June 28th, 1989, the body of 28-year-old Kimberly was discovered in Cottonwood Canyon. A police query on the victim revealed that she was a known prostitute and also a drug user. Her bruised and battered corpse was taken to the county coroner's office, where the autopsy revealed the presence of alcohol and drugs. The official cause of death was listed as asphyxiation, so he was strangling them. While another murder did not sit well with the task force, they were excited to learn that several pubic hairs and fibers unrelated to the victim herself were discovered on her body. This evidence alone told them very little about the killer, but if a suspect were to emerge, the samples could play a major role in identifying him. Following the murder of Kimberly, local newspapers began to look into the murders. Within weeks of out-of-town reporters began arriving in Riverdale. The killer was soon dubbed the Riverside Prostitute Killer or the Lake Elsinore Killer. Captain Bill Reynolds held several press conferences and tried to calm the public, assuring them that all efforts were being made to find this killer. And in this too, they were saying they were spending hundreds and thousands, 100,000. They were spending thousands of dollars trying to figure out this case. Good night, Max. Thanks for coming. Hi, Mick. Welcome. Well, and they don't either. It's Cleveland. It's not. It can be. It is illegal here in the United States, but it still doesn't make it right for a serial killer to kill them. But like, it tends to be, like I said, an easy target for serial killers because 9 times out of 10, these women that are on the streets don't have family that is looking for them. So nobody's looking for these people except for maybe those friends that they have made through prostitution or whatnot. Other than that, that's why prostitutes become an easy target here in the United States. I have done multiple of serial killers that have prostitutes are their choice of women that they go after, because and that too is these women get into strangers' cars with no questions asked. That's the easiest thing. I mean, that's easy for a serial killer. They don't gotta drag fuss, no fuss getting people in the car. This makes it easy with a prostitute. We'll get into a stranger's car. So that also gives why they choose them. Yeah, that too. Cleveland, does. It is, but like you say, every place is different. But I do know United States prostitution is illegal. You can get women get fined and whatnot for selling their body. It is a no here. But it's an easy way for cops a lot of times when they are trying to get people that are doing this and getting caught. Women cops will act as a stand-in prostitution to get people arrested that they know are doing or picking up people. Yeah, Renee, unfortunately there is. And like I said, every um it just there's more than what most people think. And I'm like, literally, I'm just on Leo's and I don't even do all of them. There's 39 of them, but like each one just seems to get as worse as it is. Like I said with the other one, um this is what stated what I was talking about you guys with, because they will get right into the car with a stranger, can easily be dehumanized in the mind of a killer and not missed for a long time by family members. He also described a serial killer as someone who murders one victim at a time, at least 3 or 4 over a period of weeks, months, or years, with a cooling off period between the murders. Um, Majority of serial killers hunt humans, usually for sexual thrills, will commit this crime over and over again until they are killed, arrested, or very rare cases decide to move on and find another fantasy to pursue. Right? Yeah, I will think probably Dahmer. I think I haven't come across his yet, but I will. Whatever his Zodiac, obviously he'll be on there. And the Zodiac killer, but since they don't know who it is, I will probably just do that one on its own. Into the mountains. But you're a truck driver, Nate, so you really shouldn't have that much of them. On the afternoon of November 6, 1990, a man working at an industrial plant on Plymouth Avenue in Northwest Riverdale, not far from the location where Carol was found another mutilated corpse of a female hidden underneath some tree branches. This was by far the killer's most brutal crime yet. The victim, 33-year-old Cheryl, a prostitute and drug user, suffered severe mutilations to her body. Most shocking of all, the killer had removed her right breast and placed it next to her. Investigators found shoe prints at the scene. Several photographers and impressions were made of the input, and the footprint were made before the body was transferred to the morgue. It was later determined that the victim had died as a result of strangulation. On December 20th, next month, janitor was emptying dustbins at a factory complex where he discovered a nude and carefully posed body of a young woman. On this written as the woman is 27-year-old Suzanne, a local prostitute and drug user, with no evidence of mutilation found on the victim's body. Its remains in the coroner later determined she died of strangulation. Victim number 13 was 42-year-old Kathleen or Carol, was discovered on January 19th, 1991. by passing motorists, her body alongside the road of Lake Elsinore. According to the autopsy report, the victim was rendered unconscious by several blows to the head and then strangled. She had been less than 24 hours, been dead less than 24 hours. On July 4th, 1991, picnickers near Railroad Canyon discovered the remains of 37-year-old Sherry, same as prostitute and drug user. The victim's hand was wrapped around some nearby branches, suggesting that she was still alive when the killer left. Apparently, Sherry had made one last feeble attempt to crawl away before succumbing to her injuries. An autopsy later revealed that the victim had been strangled and feline hairs were discovered on her corpse. According to the victim's friend, she did not own a cat, thus leading investigators to wonder if her killer did. Just as it seemed when they were never going to catch a break, investigators got their first major lead on August 15, 1991. According to Kears, a man driving a gray van picked up a prostitute near the University of California. The woman told investigators that everything was going fine at first, but then the John became angry and assaulting her for no reason. Lucky the girl managed to jump out of the vehicle and ran down the street. The man quickly sped off but stopped at a nearby corner to pick up the girl's friend, 23-year-old prostitute Kelly. Later that same night, investigators found Kelly's naked body near the intersection of Sampson Avenue and Delilah Street. The victim had been strangled. Her body was still warm when they found her. Investigators had just missed the killer they had so desperately sought. The woman who escaped the killer's clutches was able to help investigators create a composite sketch of the suspect and his vehicle. Investigators quickly issued an APBA within hours. Newspapers, television station broadcasting the killer's likeness. On September 13, 1991, construction worker found the body of Kathleen McDonald, knowing same. They figured that it was unrelated. The victim was African American, whereas all previous victims were Caucasian. However, upon closer inspection, they noticed that the victim's right breast had been removed. But unlike Cheryl Coker's mutilation, it was not lying next to the victim's corpse. Apparently, the killer had taken it with him. Investigators surmised that the killer heard a recent broadcast on the 6 o'clock news during which psychologists said that the killer was probably a white male who preyed exclusively on white women. Hence, the purpose of McDonald's murder to show the media who was in charge. The following month, October 30th, 1991, a man was driving along Summerhill Drive. He was spotted something odd just off the shoulder of the road. At first, I thought it was a mannequin. He later told him, but at later inspection, I realized it was the corpse of a woman. The victim was later identified as 35-year-old Delia Zamore, a prostitute, drug addict, and mother of 5. The county coroner listed the cause of death as asphyxiation. The victim toll was now 18. Investigators still didn't have one viable suspect. The killer was striking at least once a month now, and investigators knew it was only a matter of time before he killed again. Excuse me. Yes, please share each other's links. Hi, Rick. Share each other out. Get to know each other. And I know most of us here know each other. So, but it's still nice to get subs when you have other people that are in the chat. Two days before Christmas, 1994, Eleanor's naked body was found near Victoria Avenue, just down the street from Riverside Police Station. The 39-year-old drug addict and a prostitution was strangled in her breast was missing. The proximity of the body to the police station angered investigators, who were convinced that the killer purposely placed her in there in order to make fools of them. On the night of January 9th, 1992, Officer Frank Orta was patrolling University Avenue in an area known for prostitutes and drugs, when he suddenly noticed a van matching the description of the APB making an illegal U-turn. When Orta flashed his lights and sirens, the 1989 Mitsubishi pulled off to the side. He quickly called for backup. Within minutes, Officer Don and Dwayne were at the scene. The driver, a man by the name of William Suff, appeared to be polite, but upon running his name through the computer, Orta discovered that his driver's license was suspended and his vehicle registration was expired. The suspect was then transported to the Riverside Police Station for questioning. Christina Kears, the Riverside Killer, and Brian Allen Lane, the 15 most murder cases ever to shock America, both provided details, with some from the Los Angeles Times. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Nate, for using or posting Rick's. Yeah, posting his link. That's nice for nothing. What? Yeah, well, I'm not like that, Nate. I would harm myself before I harm someone else. That's the way I've always been. William Lester Stuff was born August 20th, 1950 in Torrance, California. Unfortunately, this is what it's in because they didn't know what caused this. He was puzzles, even them to very, very little is known about him, very little about his childhood and events. Interesting puzzles. All drugs and whatever. On February 28th, 1992, Suff was arraigned before Judge Becky Doing in Division 22 of the Riverside Multiplicity Courthouse. Stuff's attorney, Floyd, entered a plea of innocent on 2 of the 19 deaths to which his client was charged. After hearing arguments from both sides, Judge Durang ruled that there was enough evidence to send the case to trial. On July 19, 1995, a Riverside court found Stuff guilty of killing 12 women and attempting to kill another. Though police suspect of him responsible for as many as 22 deaths, Stuff didn't testify in his defense. During the penalty phase that followed, the prosecutor presented evidence linking Stuff to the 1986 murder of a woman, as well as evidence that despite his prior Texas prison term for murdering his first daughter, he abused and abused and violently shook his 3-month-old daughter by his second wife. So he almost literally killed his other kiddo. On August 17th, 1995, after deliberating for 10 minutes, the jury returned verdicts of guilty on all 12 murder counts. No, his name is Suff. I know, I think it's on Suff. It's Suff. It's Suff. Yeah, the jury couldn't anonymously agree to find him guilty on a 13 count of murder. So October 26th, 1995, the trial court followed the jury's verdict and ordered Suff to death. Suff resides on death row at San Quentin State Prison. So yeah, he's still sitting in prison, and his 2014 appeal for the sentence was rejected by the next court. So he's tried to appeal his being on death row, but it's not working. It's not worked. And he is, what did I say? Yeah, and he's 72. Yeah, I was gonna say I said that too. That's only got 3 thumbs up, and there's 13 people in here. It's okay. I know I'm boring. Oh yeah, I believe it, Nate, because it. And I'm not saying that to you, but there's been well-known truck drivers that have been serial killers. I haven't got to any of them yet, but I know there's well-known serial killers that are truck drivers. Because it's easier, because some of these truck drivers literally travel state to state. They never stay in the same place for a long period of time. Well, thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. I really do enjoy like this kind of thing. Like it just the different things of how different people and different killers really are from from Leo, even from Leos, from Capricorns, how different they are. Like Capricorns, there was way more killings with the serial killers, which is why they were stuck at the top. Now Leos, on the other hand, were sickening in the way that they said they should have been on top, because their choice of them is 9 times out of 10 was a kid. It was kids. Leos tend to apparently have things with killing kids, and that's probably why there was a lot of women in the Leos that were committing the murders. It was women doing it. Well, I'm sorry you got laughed at for it, because I'm with you with a lot of those places would be haunted, because how many people have probably died on some of those lots of truck stops. I mean, more than most people think. Thank you, Ryan. That means a lot. Yeah, it gets, some places are really rough. I mean, I know, I want to say, trying to think where Ramsey has, like, I believe in what Ramsey was doing with where he's from. Um, he chose his family, his father, his brother, really bad. They've all, his dad and his brothers, I must say brother or brothers, but have spent time in prison and whatnot. And Ramsey decided, I don't want that, and became a chef, and for real, do better for himself, and got out of all that. So for him to go into the prison system like he was from his hometown, and try to work with these prisoners that nobody else wants to work with, was in, to me, inspiring. That knowing his background from where his family life is, that he could have been a part of that, but he chose not to be. Yes, some of us do see dead people, Roger, unfortunately. And then you got people like me who are empaths, and let me tell you, being friends with people, and it's hard to explain when things happen, because they don't understand how I feel, because I know when they're lying to me. I know when this, because I get emotional very bad when it comes to friends. But yes, and figure out, I'm not sure which ones are next, but I'm going to start keeping up on this more often, and not stop making myself be. It's getting winter time, and I really need to stop, because I get winter blues really bad because of the sun not being out and whatnot. So I need to get more, maybe make a hangout on some of the days so I can do my diamond art, which I haven't worked on for a minute, because I got this one over here, and I've like literally only spent like 3 hours on doing it, and I would done by now done had it done. Yeah, Cleveland, I agree with you there. There is some towns, and I'm telling you, my hometown from where I'm from, Columbia City, they literally do. They like get to the point where they're bored or they know you, so they'll put you in jail over stupid shit. Or it's been bad. It's yeah. Or it's the stupid shit that you get put in jail for versus some other places. Like here in a bigger town, they don't put people in jail for um, child support because jails are too full here. But in my hometown, they put you in jail for child support because they don't have a whole lot. Their drug trafficking from my hometown is not a big thing. There has been a few, yes, but like for the most part, it weed is the biggest thing. Like it is, but like here where I'm at now, meth is the big thing that gets people in trouble and whatnot, man-made stuff. But yeah, in my hometown, they will. They're just literally they don't have enough to keep people in, so they do stupid shit. Jeez, where are you from, Cleveland? But yes, I do plan on like even after I'm done with um I know that would be a big case and that would literally take time so I can do research on it, but like um actually details and stuff of what they know of the Zodiac killer. Like there's so much in like here recently, like I've talked about too, is in the last few years, people have been for real going back and forth with a lot of stuff, and also want to do my another big one that I want to do is sure Jack the Ripper. That's another one. But that makes sense. That makes sense. I had from things I miss from things with my friends I used to talk to in New Zealand that I used to play games with on Facebook. I used to play games with people in New Zealand. Yeah, true. Like there is so many there is so much of the zodiac signs anyway. Um like you're saying, they could explain the origins of zodiac signs. Well, that'd be cool. I can do that too. But there is so many, like I was saying with Jack the Ripper. There in the last couple of years, I was doing the wrong way. Zodiac killer is just a Zodiac killer, but Jack the Ripper in the last 2 3 years, if maybe a little bit more, um, they have theories that are really they're very well known that um, Sherlock Holmes really could have been the Jack the Ripper because the timeline fits all the way around with when he was over there and then coming back to the United States. Um, it's very interesting. Scorpios will be in there soon. I'm trying to go back and figure out here. Let me look real quick. Figure out what the next one is. I know I have it somewhere. I'm just trying to find it. No, I've lost it. There we go. I found it. Next one is Sagittarius. That will be my next one. So the next Zodiac killers I'm working on will be Sagittarius. Later Nightmare. You're funny, Nate. Well, you're welcome, Renee. Have a good evening, hon. It's been really good. I really enjoy doing these.
I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gon' live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad. I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad. Doing no cap. Only God wants you, better go live it up. Cash in the bag, stadium packed.
Yeah, you guys are more than welcome to also give me ideas or whatever too. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Belinda.
I ain't gonna lay back, pray that someone's gonna help me. Ain't nobody like that. I ain't gonna wait, that's all fact. Give me one shot and I'll never get the throne back. I'm sick of being cautious. I'ma go cause something, can't stop this. I'm everybody's laying
Right.
shoplift. Sick of hearing everyone complain when they thoughtless. Taste the pain, it's like candy canes. It makes me go change into a better frame, into a better name. Society.
You gotta figure out something, Belinda, so you can come up on stream or something and chit chat while we're doing some stuff.
Baby, I'm bad. I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad. Do it no cap. Only God wants you, better go live it up. Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Baby, I'm bad. Baby, I'm bad.
Actually, it should be coming out.
Tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way.
Because I know there are serial killers out there that have been truck drivers.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that.
I don't know. I didn't see that, so I'm I usually say their name usually more than once while I'm doing the thing too, though.
I'm addicted to her, need her touching me, cause she got a bad little waist, and we tearing down this place.
Oh, that's cool, Mick. I'm glad you came, and I hope you enjoyed it. Right? Yeah, Cleveland, that's the stuff I do watch. I watch all of that. Like I watch not only do I watch the FBI files, I am also into the anything with ER things. I'm all the way around watching that kind of stuff. But the funny thing is, when it comes to me, it's different. Like when I'm bleeding, it's yeah, it's different. No, thank you, Ryan. It is though, that was the only difference for me with this doing Leo killers is the zodiac sign was more women, but Leos tend to be children killers on top of versus just any versus anybody. So yeah, we'll see how interesting Sagittarius becomes. Let's see what kind of motive they have versus what we've done so far. Well, that's good. I'm glad, Mick. I'm glad to hear that. We usually have a pretty good community over here. But yep, I am going to, and just so you know, everything is like, I did put Juice there to help Juice in his Dex. I really pray that Dex makes it and he's okay. But you know, Dex is a little dog. But we all pray that Dex makes it out. I mean, this would just, I'm telling you what, that my little dog, if I had a dog like that and being that close to him, pets to you are just like our kids. I'm gonna tell you what, something happened to my cats, I'd be the same way. Oh, Cleveland, I have watched a lot of I like watching a lot of psychic things on top of with that I do. I have watched a lot of those too. There is so much I've watched like interesting. Like I've watched all the profiles. I have watched John Walsh's America's Most Wanted. He now also has a new show called In Pursuit. It's another show versus America's Most Wanted. He now does In Pursuit, and he is doing these cases that are special, and him and his son Callahan are working on doing these cases together. So it's been really neat kind of seeing John Walsh and then seeing him work co-side with his boy doing these, because now his boy is now doing these kind of cases like he was doing. Thank you, Roger. I know, right? But yeah, I have, and then there's I forget what the other show it is called, but he's got another one besides In Pursuit. There's also another one where the other show is related to it, but it's the show where they're reviewing the case because the people have been found. So they doing the case and re-showing what the people that committed the murders and whatnot have been caught. And if you all don't know who John Walsh is, he in, I want to say, one of the very first big cases of child kidnapping. It was his own 6-year-old. I want to say he was 6 or 8. His own boy ended up being kidnapped literally from a mall where his wife was with the kids. I don't know if his other brother, I don't know if Callahan was born. I don't think Callahan was born yet. He was kidnapped and taken and killed, obviously, because they found his decapitated head before they found his body. But because of that situation, John went into doing a thing with the cops and became America's most wanted for people, the fugitives, that are people that are running. I did make you blue, Mick. Well, of course, that's Mick. When you want people to stay in your chat, you make them feel welcome. Yes, Cleveland. I think that's awesome. You keep bringing that up, different stuff, and makes me remember. You guys know Nick Goff, who was with Zach. He now has his own thing and does his thing. But a lot of people don't know is sure. I just said his wife is a psychic, and she is very well with. And just recently, Omar didn't tell her where. He just told her where she was and whatnot. Omar was trying to have her help solve a Jane Doe case that has been unsolved for like 50 some years. It was really neat what she was picking up and whatnot. She's really good. Yeah, it was Cleveland. And now, like that's what I was saying, America's Most Wanted. He now has the show called In Pursuit with his son Callahan. Yeah, I do. I really I know some people don't for this and that reason, but Omar is one I have followed since like when I first started being in YouTube. He's the first one I started following, like everything, like between what happened with him and Melissa. Everything. And I've been following him now for almost 7-8 years. So yeah, I like the different things when he does things. Like I followed a lot of people because of him, and then, stuff that happens. Well, I should be ending as we actually had 2 hours, and I will try to continue and do this more often and try to get this every Thursday, or if every two. Just depends on the day, but we'll see what we work out. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you have all good night. Oh yeah, absolutely. I like watching all of his different things, and because he talks about the history, at least he tries to figure out the history of a lot of things too. Much love to you all. I hope to see you all. See you and probably see you in AAP's chat tomorrow. All right, y'all. Y'all have a good night. Much love all.